reconvene the public session. I apologize, we are starting late. I'm going to call upon the city attorney to report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council went into closed session on the only item for closed session listed on the agenda, gave direction to negotiators. There was no reportable action.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Newton, and then that will be followed by Pastor Aaron Diaz with our invocation for this evening.
Hello, if you would bow your heads with me. Dear God, I just want to thank you for this great town of Norco. I ask, Lord, for your wisdom, your guidance, your considerations, God, as our leaders and as all the people, Lord God, are here to make decisions for this town. Lord, I pray for blessings over the individuals, the families, and the businesses. God, that there would be prosperity and growth here. And God, that would be because we acknowledge you as God, and we thank you that you are watching over this town. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
It's just the president.
Okay.
Okay, so
And
he'll
who
be
is-
accepted, nobody else.
What's
So
the
just-
president's name? Do you know?
I don't even
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our Community Spirit Award. So Councilman Bash is going to do that presentation.
The Community Spirit Award. Why don't you stand beside me? Where this started was during the pandemic. We began to realize there were people that were going above and beyond, just doing extraordinary things in the community. And we were trying to find ways to create community spirit. And so we came up with the Community Spirit Award. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of honoring two people who just happen to be married, Gary and Susan. And at the end of this, I'll kind of explain why I chose them. I'm just going to read you just a few of the things that these two do. 2016, they were Horse Week committee members, worked on Easter Sunday. 2018, Horsemen's Association board members. 2018, current rural members. 2016, Kiwanis Club. I served with them on Kiwanis Club. I'm going to talk a little bit about treasure and different things like that. They've been docents on the ranch tour. They work with various clubs to provide scholarships to Norco High, Norco FFA students, JFK students each year, which is through Kiwanis Club. As Norco business owner, Susan sponsors several events, including the annual Compare Carpet Childhood Cancer Fundraiser and Peppermint Ridge Gala. They volunteer as workers at the following events: the Posse Rodeo, Day of the Cowboy, Horse Affair, Norco Fair, 6th Street, Sale of Fair Buttons, Breakfast with Santa, I need a rest, Chili Cook-Off for Horse Week, Obstacle Course, Horse Week, Relay for Life, Empty Bowl, Settlement House, FFA, Food Pantry. Gary, the one who never says a word, 2020, current senior food delivery, volunteers with Randy to deliver food to senior centers the first Friday of each month. American Legion Post 328, service officer volunteer. Susan, specifically 2019 to 2023, Measure R committee member. Chair 2021-23, vice chair. 2018-2019 Economic Development Advisory Council member. 2016 to 2018 Lake Norconian Club Foundation treasurer. 2016 current Norco Education Support Team volunteer CPA. Kiwanis Back to School Backpack Giveaway, member of NAC since 2016, American Legion Auxiliary Unit 328, member volunteer. Friends and Families of Peppermint Ridge, volunteer CPA. They have done a lot. Now, none of this is why I wanted to honor them tonight. One of the things that these two do, one is that, particularly Gary, is they really never toot their own horn. Gary in particular is kind of joined at Susan's hip, and he's always everywhere doing whatever is needed. If you know John Akins and some of those people, they just are everywhere. And yet you never know they're there, but you kind of notice they're there. And so that's why he's here. I have been a treasurer for many, many groups. Now, first off, let me say, never join, after all my years in doing nonprofits, never join a group that doesn't have a bunch of city clerks or retired city clerks as members. Because all you have to do is go, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. But a treasurer is that unsung hero that nobody realizes how hard that job is if you're a good one. And you probably have all been members of groups where the treasurer was not a good one. The pressure is enormous. Susan, I swear I will join any club that Susan is the treasurer, because I know the money will be handled honestly and fairly. The other thing about Susan that's so important is she is literally, for example, years ago we started a group called NEST, which is Norco Education Support Team. We ran into trouble with the state of California because we didn't have our nonprofit status. She cleaned it all up. Normally that would cost you $3,000 literally to clean it up. Because she did that, we've been able to funnel thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars through that group that goes directly to Norco High School students. We just $4,000 is being funneled into that group to do a boots, rifle, and helmet for Kareem Nakui at Norco High School. She is extraordinary in what she does for Peppermint Ridge. I don't know if you've ever been to Peppermint Ridge. It is a gigantic, enormous place. She keeps the money straight. So tonight it is just, I mean, I could go on and on and on about these two literally. They are truly unsung heroes, and they're not everybody's most popular person. When you handle the money, guess what? Not everybody likes you, because you're the one that says the buck has to stop here. And Susan is great at that. And again, the quiet guy over here is there all the time. So with great pleasure, Gary and Susan Bowen, the Norco City Council, applaud you for embodying the spirit of Norco. Please, maybe Gary will speak.
Quiet one doesn't speak.
Well, we want to thank you for this honor. And we moved to Norco in 2015, and we just were embraced by the community. And it's so nice to live in a place where so many people want to work and help our community be successful and help people who need help. So thank you all. And thank you all for attending, my friends from Kiwanis, and Measure R, and NHA, and Horse Week. So there's lots of friends here, and I want to thank you for supporting us. Oh, rural. Sorry, rural too.
Gary?
Oh, no.
Gary's a quiet one.
Let's get a photograph.
Everyone?
Yes, next up is football. So tonight we are recognizing the Norco Junior All-American Football 2023 Super Bowl champions. I think that deserves a round of applause. So we have the midget blue team that consisted of 25 players and 12 cheerleaders. And we have the Norco Pee-wee team, which consisted of 19 players and 11 cheerleaders. The midget blue team went 12-0 this year and had a dominating season, supported by their cheerleaders. They traveled as far east as Indio and as far south as Murrieta to play this year. The team was composed of seasoned players as well as first-year players, and the range included everything in between. The coaches, led by head coach Daniel McCopen, did a great job of helping all the players reach game level needed to be a championship team. The Pee Wee 1 team went 10-2 this year, supported by their cheerleaders, in arguably one of the most competitive divisions at the youth football level. This is the last level in which you have a weight limit to play. The team was composed of 18 players, all 13 years old. They were able to go out and dominate, only losing twice, once in game 1 to Redlands and once to Corona. The team beat Chino Hills in the championship game. So at this time, I would like to call the president of Norco Jeff up to the podium, please. So on behalf of the city of Norco, we're going to present you this recognition to your midget blue team and tell them, please, congratulations from the city council on being the Super Bowl champions this year. There's your first one. And then the second one is to your Pee Wee 1 team. Again, congratulations on being champions and representing the city of Norco.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words? Okay. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll take a picture with council real quick up here at the dais for you guys. Yeah, so we'll step right in front. All right, next on the agenda is going to be city council reports on regional boards. And we are going to start with Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman.
All right, well, I was pretty busy. A couple of things. Day of the Cowboy. Put it on your calendar, July 22nd. So you're got 6 months ago, and Michelle and the crew and Amanda, we got it handled, right? All right, we got that down. There are several things that I went to, and then tomorrow I get to go down to Palm Springs, spend 2 days with the Riverside County Transportation Commission, and I know we're going to hear about it. I know the road closure was a mess, okay? I got an earful just like the rest of us, I'm sure, but it's done, and probably the next one won't be until 2 or 3 more months. It won't be as bad, but there'll be closures. But we're going to talk about tomorrow at the Riverside County Transportation Commission. What I really want to talk about right now, it's very important, is I don't know how many of you are bus riders, but let's face it, mass transit is important. And so what I want you to do, and just so you know, our city only has one route, one workable route, bus route 3. It runs down Hamner Avenue in that way. And it goes into Eastvale. Eastvale has 2 routes that go into Harupa Valley and then the Riverside. Ours goes from downtown and goes all the way from Eastvale through on Hamner, just follows about Hamner all the way through, picks up at the senior center, and then heads off to the bus station there in the terminal right there in Corona. The route that used to be on River Road, it's not there anymore. It's gone. And that's through the sustainability programs. Now, the reason I bring in Eastvale is because they're sitting there the same way we are. They have no transportation system. In the city of Corona, our family to the south, they have the Corona Cruiser for their public transportation to augment where RTA doesn't go. But we don't have that here. And so that's why if you follow through, you go onto the Riverside Transit Agency's webpage, you'll see this thing on sustainability. And what it is, it talks about, it's a survey. It tells you how much you use and things like that, if you use the bus at all. Or tell people to fill these in. Fill it out. Give an idea. And later on in the council, I will be asking towards the end of my meeting, our meeting tonight, I'm going to ask my fellow council members to help us work on this thing. So it's impacting us. If you take your kids to school and you see the bus, you notice we don't have any route. You can use the Corona Cruiser if you kids go to Auburndale. It gets you there, but it won't go across because there's no other bus route. So this is why it's a big thing. As I'm on the RTA bill, so it's really important that we work together and maybe work with our folks in Eastville, see what we can do. So I'll be asking my fellow council members for that later on. So other than the RTA and the SAPWA, the One Water, One Watershed meeting, we had a real healthy discussion, and we actually, we get more grant money and trying to get more from the state, we combine with the Riverside County Flood Control Agency to work on their projects together. So because the whole thing with water now is retention, saving it, and make sure we use it again. So those are the other things. So thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Alleman.
Yeah, so January 19th, I was at the Northwest Mosquito Vector Control District Finance Subcommittee and Board of Trustees meeting, business as usual. And I'll skip ahead to the conference that I attended, which was the Mosquito and Vector Control Association of California annual conference. They had a trustee day, which was really great. We got to go out and see Orange County's Vector Control District, which is a large district compared to the one that serves Norco, which is about a medium-sized. A couple things, the mosquito, there's a certain species of mosquito. The Culex mosquito is the deadliest animal in California, kills more people per year. And in a little bottle cap like this, the one that's on top of your water, your soda, just the amount of water that's in one of those, 150 mosquitoes can develop. So if you think about, if you have a bucket of just standing water that filled up in the rain that doesn't get dumped out, hundreds of mosquitoes in a large source, millions. The issue with mosquitoes usually isn't the large sources, large bodies of water, because those are easier to treat. It's all the little sources of water on all the individual people's property. So especially with the rains, make sure that you're emptying out any standing water. And then the California Cities Environmental Policy Committee, we had a really robust discussion on local control, and we set our policies for this year so that what we'll be focusing on and looking at as bills come through from Sacramento: water resiliency and adaptation, clean and reliable energy, waste and recycling. And then we also, there was a guest speaker, and they talked about a pure water project which is happening up in the Malibu area. Really interesting. They are getting approved. They're going to be taking their recycled wastewater and they're going to be putting it in their reservoir that stores water. So it's going to meet the threshold for mixing, and they're doing additional purification, but they're finding a way to kind of reuse that wastewater to develop it into pure water. And they've done a lot of community outreach. They made gelato, coffee, beer, and had folks come out and taste it and drink it. And they went through the science on how that water is even cleaner than the water that we're pulling up. So that was really interesting to hear, especially as we've had, a great discussion on around our state with what to do with water reliability in our water sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bash.
I guess January 27th attended the Cal City's Revenue and Taxation Committee meeting. We did not have a robust discussion. I worked very closely with our city manager. Just flat out, she coached me on some things, so I appreciate that. What came before us were a couple of things. The most important is, many of you may know that Amazon has started something in which it used to be that money that was at a distribution center would be spread out amongst the entire county. It is no longer done that way. Now it goes to the city, even though we're all buying stuff there and we get all their trucks. All the money goes to wherever that fulfillment center is. And so, for example, Eastvale gets $30 million additional dollars a year. There's the city manager committee that is trying to work through to find a more equitable distribution of the money. And one of the things I took exception to is that they were asking us to approve sort of the guidelines to move forward, and two of those components were that if they build it in their community, the money isn't distributed throughout the entire community. It goes to just that community. So we get the trucks, we buy from them, but they get all of the building fees and things like that. And then the other part is, it would not be, if they change the law or are able to find a way that the tax money gets distributed equally, it would not go backwards. It would be only going forward. I personally felt that basically they were getting everything they wanted. I'm trying to find out what the composition of that group is. What bothered me the most was that rather than a discussion, the chair took it directly to a vote. And so frankly, I was kind of the bad guy. I kept going, nope, 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 nope. And, but I need to find out what the makeup of that group is, how many people depend on these distribution centers for their income. One gentleman said, well, you know what, if you take away the $8 million we get a year, we won't have a fire police department. Well, as was pointed out to me, they've only got this money for 2 years. And so basically we're expected to take all of the trucks, we're expected to take all the impacts. As I pointed out, the Inland Empire, if you go on the 60 freeway, the 10 freeway, the 15 freeway, they take 3 lanes of traffic. And one of the things that apparently the governor says he will sign is that they will not allow any more of these things to be built in the Inland Empire. So to be continued on that. I was able to, and again, I really thank our city manager who's really up on this stuff. I was able to make actually several changes to some of the things that were coming down in some of the other areas, so I really appreciate that. And then I kind of wanted to close. I attended the Riverside National Cemetery Gold Star Family Memorial unveiling. And the reason I bring this up is we recently completed our Gold Star Memorial, and all the fronts are the same, but the backs are different. And this is the first one that was actually ever built at a Riverside National Cemetery. But as they were talking, the different speakers, the grandson of Woody Williams, who kind of invented these memorials, said that initially his grandfather wanted to do a Gold Star Mother monument. And he said a man came up to him and had tears in his eyes. And he said, fathers cry too. I was sitting next to Steve Nakui, who was a puddle. And so it's interesting that initially when we started the Gold Star Family Memorial, it was Gold Star Mothers, and I had a father at the American Legion who came up to me and said, I lost my son too. So it was a very moving ceremony, and kudos to Cece from Marietta who got it done, and they actually called us and asked if we would delay ours until theirs was built, and we just went click. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Newton. Thank you, and ditto for me. So we will move on to item number 2, which is our consent calendar. At this time, I'm going to ask if my colleagues have any items they would like pulled from consent. Okay. 2F, please. Councilmember Newton. Any others? Well, we have to wait. Are there any public comments, Madam Clerk?
I received one public comment card for 2G.
2G. Okay.
Will you amend your motion, Greg? So, second.
Okay.
Motion to approve the rest?
Motion to approve the rest, I'm assuming, yeah.
Please vote.
Oh, shoot.
Mine hasn't shown up yet. Yes. I have the green check mark.
Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
All right. Oh, it just showed up right now. It's loading next time. All right. So then we will move on to item number 3, which is going to be those items that are pulled from our consent calendar. So we'll go ahead and start with Councilmember Newton and item 2F.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make comment on our financial report, and I wanted to compliment Lisette and your team for all your hard work, and also for your award achievement for excellence in financial reporting. Really proud of you guys, and you just continuously just do a great job. And I noticed that debits did equal credits, so I'm very proud of you. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Please vote. Mayor Grummeyer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous. That's the vote, Mayor.
All right. So at this time, we'll move to item 2G.
We have one public comment card, Bill Naylor.
Good evening, Council. I'm not against the proposal that was presented on the creation of a position of supervisor for code enforcement. As most of you know, I did code enforcement for 10 years and understand the need to have supervision within that section. My concern and only question that I did ask of staff was, why are we looking at a supervisor position that's only half-time? Would it not be better to create a full-time position and then have a part-time position fill that other vacancy? It just did not make sense why we were having a half-time supervisor when you've got staff on all the time. It was just something I thought you should take a look at, maybe think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I have no further comment, Mayor.
Any comments or discussion from staff? Otherwise, or from council, I'll take a motion. Okay, thank you.
Please vote. Mayor Grummeyer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we'll move to item number 4, which is our public comments, and we will have the clerk call any public comments.
I have no general public comment cards this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, all right. Then we will move on to item number 5, which is our legislative matters. Today is a second reading of ordinance number 1092, so I will entertain a motion.
Second.
Please vote. Councilmember Grubmeyer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. All right. We will move on to item number 6, starting with 6A, which is going to be our celebrating the 100th anniversary of the creation of the Norco Township with our communications manager, Newton.
Good evening, council members. I'm going to give a brief overview on staff's recommendations to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the creation of the Norco Township. On May 13th, 1923, Rex Clark officially unveiled his new community called Norco and put the first properties up for sale, which marks this year, 2023, as the 100th anniversary of the creation of the Norco Township. At that time, Clark sought to create a community of independent farmers with an economy based on small, self-sustaining farms and ranches. Staff has used Clark's original inspiration to develop a variety of opportunities to celebrate this significant anniversary. To start, staff has created the slogan, "A Century Rooted in Rural Living," to inspire the 100th anniversary celebration and pay homage to Norco's agrarian roots and continued dedication to preserving a rural lifestyle. To kick off the celebration, staff recommends hosting a free community event at the Norco Community Center on Saturday, May 13th, as the community center also turns 100 years old this year. The event could recreate opening day in Norco and feature family fun activities such as free ice cream and coffee, as you see here in the pictures from the original opening day, games for all ages, and live music. To further pay homage to Norco's agrarian roots, the event could also include a farmers market and agricultural demonstrations hosted by city partners, including the Eat Cultural Center, Riverside County Waste Resources, and even Cal Poly Pomona. Additionally, the Heritage and Agricultural Preservation Commission could prepare a satellite display of archive photos, documents, and relics from this period in Norco's history for public viewing at the event. And Councilmember Bash has also suggested preparing a time capsule to be sealed for opening in the future. It is customary for organizations in the public and private sectors to create a limited edition logo to use during an anniversary celebration. In order to expedite the design process and create high quality professional artwork, staff recommends retaining a consultant to design an agrarian inspired logo that complements our slogan and our existing brand identity. Staff also recommends using the logo and slogan on marketing materials and limited edition merchandise from May to August. The logo and slogan can be incorporated with summer concerts and movies in June and July, and the celebration can culminate with the grand opening of the new barn at the Ingalls Event Center in August. So this event is not included in the current budget, therefore staff recommends allocating $25,000 for the necessary event support and materials costs related to the celebration. At this time, the city manager and I are available for questions.
All right. So do any of the council members have any questions for staff? No? Any questions?
One thing, are you aware that the very beautiful lady is actually Rex Clark's mistress? So I think
Yeah.
that was apropos.
Fun fact.
All right.
This is why we need that history display.
Exactly.
All right. So then we're going to go ahead and see if there's any public comment at this time.
I I have one public speaker card, Jeff Cahan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. I brought this up a couple of months ago because I knew that it was coming, and I'm happy to see that we're discussing actually moving forward with some ceremonies and some celebrations. Had the honor and privilege in 2014. Kathy Azevedo asked me to help out with the city's 50th birthday celebration, and I was able to put on a nice event with in conjunction with Bob's Big Boy. We did a nice car show and sock hop over at the Riley Gym. So doing something like this for our 100th anniversary would be absolutely fantastic, and I'm willing to volunteer my time and services for whatever I can do to lend to this celebration. I think it would be a fantastic way to recognize Norco's 100th anniversary. Thank you.
I have no further public comment, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it back to council for discussion and action. Any discussion from council? Councilmember Hoffman?
Yeah, earlier, as you all know, we tried to get the Horse Week to do part of this as their annual to celebrate 100 years. It was going to be confusing since the city, Horse Week just celebrated their 50 years, but they did incorporate in this year's theme through the years of working through keeping Norco rules. So that was a good thing. And so I'm totally for this, and let us know, especially some of the service groups out there, what we can do to make it seem authentic and real. And I'm sure, Kevin, you probably have all the clothing and all the hardware and everything to make it a good event. So, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Newton?
Well, I'm fine with staff's recommendation. And I also think it's a good idea to have a consultant. I don't want to overburden staff. This takes a lot of work to put this on, and I think with help from our community groups, it should be very successful.
All right. Catherine?
Just want to thank the staff's work on this. It's evident that they put a lot of thought into this. I really appreciate the slogan. I think that the history display will be a wonderful addition, and just want to advocate for animals being there, children. Thank you.
I think it's a great idea. One of the things that I had talked about earlier is that our Wall of Honor, that our banner program, we would have photos of all of the people that are on the Wall of Honor. And going down 6th Street this year, I had mentioned that. We have 37 flags, 37 areas, we have 39.
So come May, there will be 37 names on the wall, but we have 42 banner spots.
Okay, so we'll have 38 come May.
Technically, we have 36 right now, so it'd be 37 if you're adding one. Okay. So there's 42 banner spots.
So what we could put is maybe Wall of Honor or something like that. Is that something council would like to do? I just think it'd be a great way to honor our 100th anniversary.
My question would be, it's always a good idea if there's a nexus, but how are you able to tell us how many banners we've already reserved or sold for this year?
Yes. So as you know, this is a very popular program, and we have people that are on a wait list. So a life expectancy of a banner, we tell people, is 2 cycles. So they pay up front for printing and installation their first year, and then they're giving a much lesser fee the second year as just a reinstallation fee. So currently, there are 36 people that are planning to have a banner this cycle in 2023. 9 of those are using their existing 2022 banner, so they only got 1 year out of that banner. The other 17 new banners, many of those were on the wait list for last year and were not given the opportunity to have a banner. So they've been waiting a year to have their banner up this year. And of those 17, 4 have already paid for the 2023. So typically, because there's a very short window and limited spaces for the banner program, people start calling City Hall come June when they see banners going up, asking how to get a banner for next year, since they've obviously missed the deadline. So these people have been waiting a long time. On a staff level, we have considered a compromise of executing this idea in 2024 to coincide with with the 10th anniversary of the George Ingalls Veterans Memorial Plaza. So that could be the nexus, and that gives staff a year to inform people that there will not be a military banner cycle in 2024, that the next cycle would be in 2025. So my recommendation is that appeases both audiences or both stakeholder groups, especially with 36 people waiting to have a banner come in a couple months.
Yeah, I like your idea. I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
And next year is the 60th birthday, obviously.
Yeah, no,
of
I think that's a
Citywide.
great idea. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Well done. Who are you again?
I don't give a name, sorry.
No, that's a great idea. I like that.
Okay. Any other discussion from council? Yes.
Mayor, thank you. Just want to add, I appreciate Councilmember Newton's comment about our team. We have an amazing team with a very full plate. So I think we will definitely be relying on our community groups and community partners to help make this day great. And the money will help us. We'll have some part-timers there too, but it's always the team that makes it special. So we'll definitely be reaching out and looking for folks to help. So that's all.
Okay, so I did have just some general comments. I like the idea for sure, and I think it's critically important. I do have a question, or maybe probably more of a comment on the consultant as far as the design logo. A lot of our groups in town have usually contests or have where the group will design their logo and then the group would vote. And well, I know we probably don't want something drawn by like a 5-year-old like we would maybe for the fair. I'm just wondering if council would be open to having residents submit for that logo, just because, again, bringing the community into it. And I know there's incredibly talented people in this community. And even at Horse Week, we had probably 10 or 15 submissions for the fair. There's well over 40 submissions. And again, it's the gamut of submissions. I'm just wondering what, council or staff's thoughts on that might be.
Well, since our city seal was done by the same way, but in fact, all 3 of them, I think that's a great idea. Do we have time to do that?
I think it's a really fun idea. It's something Kelly and I have been debating. We kind of anticipated this. So Kelly, why don't you offer kind of our 2 cents on that, and then whatever the council wants to do, we're happy to do.
Yeah, we have definitely been debating this, is a good way to put it, and weighing both options, because constantly talk about how to get new community members involved and how to get youth involved and how to get youth to appreciate the history and the rural roots. And so we saw this as a good opportunity to consider making it a contest with a selected age group that has the appropriate skills to do something like this. The consensus that we landed on was that based on the short time frame that we have to execute this type of event and roll this out in time for May, and actually more in time for April, because we like to market things 30 days in advance, it's a good idea, but we are really in need of some professional expertise with this. And my main concern would be having the correct file types and specifications that are appropriate for the different applications that we're going to adhere the logo to. If someone were to submit a hand drawing, we still have to pass that on to a consultant to digitize it and put it into the appropriate file types anyway. And that would also come at a cost, but would also be lengthening the amount of time to get to the end product. So
yeah, and the other thing I can add to, like when we want to do merchandise, you want a certain kind. So if I look at the wonderful horse up here, for example, that looks great on the seal. That would be super hard to replicate in high quality merchandise. You need a certain kind of more graphically based art. So it just takes kind of a little bit of a ruthless editor's eye. And I just, that's hard when you've got folks submitting. So those are our concerns. But having said that, if the council really wants to do a contest, we can certainly accommodate that.
I like the contest. I mean, I know it's a short time, and I get all that, but I don't know. I'll go with what council feels.
Well, I kind of feel like if the parameters are set and very specific, and it's put out there, I know we're February 1st already, but if somebody's going to do it, they're going to do it, and it's not going to take them an extended period of time if they have the skill set. So we could potentially set a deadline of, you know, February 20th or whatever it is. And then if there's no submissions, there's no submissions. There's no harm, no foul, right, at that point in time. And we go to the consultant to do what we need to do. But I just, you know, as we've interviewed people for planning commission, we've interviewed, like, there are crazy skilled, talented people that we had no idea are even in our community. And we have a super high quality graphic design program at the high school. So it's not necessarily, you know, I know you don't want hand drawn. So I just think it's a good idea to put the opportunity out there. And again, if we set a deadline that's realistic for staff, that if we get something great, and if we don't, it doesn't put you guys behind the 8 ball. You know, I just think it would be a good opportunity.
Especially with the need to have a plan B of retaining a consultant. One, if plan A falls through, but two, if it does need to be digitized into a professional piece of artwork, if the winning person in the contest may have had the best artistic eye, but it's not ready for the different applications that we need to use it for, we're still going to need to pass it on to somebody to make it not only print ready, but if some of the merch we want is like pins or magnets or challenge coins, it has to be engravable as well, which I can tell you that logo is nearly impossible to get that done correctly. And so those are the advantages and disadvantages that we've weighed. I do have a question on the recommendation. Would this just be for youth and high school students, the community at large?
Community.
I think the whole community. Again, if it's agreeable to
Yeah, I like
colleagues and
I like
workable
the
for
idea.
staff.
Yeah, I would say whatever requirements you could add on to make it, you know, so that we're looking for our folks in this particular case, people who might have an expertise in graphic design. So, you know, would be able to provide something that maybe there's a little more ease of use, especially given the short turnaround, right? If this was last year, you know, it'd be a different story. So.
Yes, and that's definitely one of the elements that we've weighed in our discussions, is just as we would give a consultant a scope of work, that would be the exact scope of work that we would be providing to the community who's interested in participating in this initiative.
Could you also open that to our pros? I mean, AFS, to different companies? I mean, would it be open to them?
I don't have a problem with that, but I don't want to pay.
I mean,
that's part of the competition. So
I meant
if they want to throw their name in the ring, I don't care, but I don't want to pay. I learned from our previous mayor.
Otherwise, we would have just paid a consultant, right? So, yeah.
Well, I'd say that.
Councilmember Hoffman.
Kelly and I'm going to toot the horn of the Norco High graphics design team over there. They do great, and they do 3D. They have 3D printers. They build everything over there. Not saying to go over there, but maybe someone I'd go over there and say, is this a good challenge for you? Do you think you can handle it? And can you get it done yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the kind of thing you would put together with them as for the timeline. And I'll bet you'll be surprised what the instructor there can or cannot do. And be honest with you, it's the same thing going over to Norco College. Is this something that you can get a turnaround in a short period of time? And throw it at them first before we just really quick go to it, because it comes like anything we do, community buy-in is a big thing. We found that out with the monument, is we went through a long time with the coin and the coin design and the challenge coin we did there and everything else we do. So I'm just not telling you to go there, but I'm just saying you got to go into the high school and just offer it to them and say, can you do it for us? That's it. Thank you.
I'm confirming that the community at large includes residents, our local high school students, Norco College, and our business community.
And don't forget JFK.
Yeah, both high schools. Mm-hmm. And then to wrap up this part of the discussion, how would you recommend judging the contest? Are you leaving that up to staff?
If you went to a consultant, staff would be making the final calls and the final decisions. And then that takes it.
Maybe bring us 2 or 3 of them, or just
I want to be
pick 'em.
responsible. I don't want to be responsible for the
Down
decision.
the process as well.
Doesn't matter to me.
You know, I'm fine with staff making that decision.
I am as, yeah.
I have one other thing. Whoever came up with the motto, what is that? That's wonderful.
A century rooted in rural living.
That is wonderful.
That would be Kelly.
And that feeds right into our push for the agricultural community and I was just like, wow, because I was still stuck on Acres of Neighbors, which is the one we had in 1923, but this was wonderful.
Can you give us a schedule on, you're going to have some drop dead dates then?
Yes.
On-
For the contest, it would have to be like February 28th.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be working on this tomorrow to summarize that.
Okay. Which I'm sure will encompass your outreach on that. I mean, don't back yourself in on a schedule,
Yes.
as we know how schedules go.
Okay, so then, we would still need a motion, right? Because there's a financial impact for this, so.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, to approve the staff recommendation.
Please vote. Catherine, did yours? Thank you. Woohoo! Motion passes unanimous.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 6B, which is discussion of the pilot program for youth commissioners and City Clerk Roa.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you tonight, I have brought back the discussion on the youth commissioners. At your December 21st City Council meeting, you discussed the idea of adding youth commissioners to our committees and commissions. At that time, you asked staff to provide an outline for a pilot program for you to work with. I provided an outline of a 2-year pilot program that includes a youth commissioner on the Planning Commission and one on Parks Recreation Commission, and included applicant requirements, a recruitment process, responsibilities and roles, and term of office as a suggestion for your discussion and consideration. So I'm looking forward to your suggestions and feedback.
All right, does council have any questions of staff?
Questions or some?
Just questions right now, please. Any questions? Catherine?
How were, in the past when we had our active youth advisory commission, how were youth appointed to that commission?
It was an application process, and pretty much we would get the exact number of applicants for the positions that were on there. If there was 12, we would have 12 applicants. It was very difficult to get anything more than that, really.
Okay, and let's say, hypothetically, that we had 20 applications for 12 spots. How would the applicants have been decided upon? Was it a staff or a subcommittee?
It was, the way I understand it, because I wasn't part of that at that time, but the way I understand it was the subcommittee that did that.
Okay.
And City Council, I believe.
City Council.
City Council
So it
made
was
the
a
final
council.
decision.
It would have been a council appointment, not a subcommittee? The subcommittee made recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
The same process?
Yeah, the same process.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
I do, Rob, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ted.
Dana, I'm looking at the, must be a Norco resident, and then on the applicant's requirement. And then you've got the ages, must be between 12 and 21 years of age. Where'd you come up with the ages?
I just kind of did an average of all the ones that I looked at from different cities. So it's just a suggestion. And some cities include their community colleges and the colleges that they have in their city, include them on their youth commissions also, and introduce some of the college students to municipal government. That's their way to bring in the college students that they partner with. So it's just a suggestion. It's something you can change if you choose to leave it to a high school and junior high school students also.
Well, the reason I'm asking, because if they're 18, they can already apply for a voting membership.
Correct.
Onto it.
Correct.
So I'm not really interested in doing that far. And then 12 is to me, is a little young, especially when we look at the age of 14 is the age of culpability, as we talk about with our youth. So I have a problem with the 12 to 21. I'd rather see it start at the age of 14, going through till, we're talking about youth, and 18 is fine, because they're still in high school most of the time. I just, when you get to the older kids, and I know they're adults then, so, but they would have an application or try to apply for full commission membership anyway. So that's the only reason I was asking on that.
Yes, that's why we're here tonight.
Thank
to
you. Thank you.
Whittle these down.
No further questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment cards for this item.
All right, so we'll bring it back to council for discussion and action. So, yes, Councilman Newton.
A couple of comments that I have. I'd like to add Streets and Trails Commission to this also, along with Planning and Parks and Rec. And I guess just what jumped to me was that maybe we have a student that's interested in engineering, that there's maybe something they can pick up. It's just another opportunity. And so I'd like us to consider adding a commission member to Streets and Trails Commission. And then kind of had the same notes as Ted mentioned on the age, but where it says must be a Norco resident, you know, when we had our youth advisory, what if we include that you must attend a Norco school? Because we could have Corona residents that attend a Norco school, and I believe we did on when we had our advisory council. So I would say that if you also attended a Norco school would be sufficient for the residency.
So if they could live in Corona, but as long as they're coming to a Norco school, they qualify.
Yeah, I personally don't have heartburn on that, but it would be also what my colleagues believe.
Just as a side note, if you go to a Norco high school but you live in Corona, you actually are eligible for Norco's Wall of Honor. So
okay. Sure.
It fits.
And then
They
you
would
have
be considered the resident, so. School did, that's what I have.
then you had must watch or attend a commission meeting. I'd just like to say scratch out watch because we don't videotape Planning Commission or Parks and Rec. So I think if you're interested, how about attending a commission meeting? And then on terms, you were recommending a 2-year non-renewable term, and I was going to ask my colleagues on what you thought about a 1-year renewable term that give more people opportunity if you just want to do a year, or you did a crappy job, you'd learn a life lesson and we won't vote for you. So those are all the notes. And the last thing I'd like us to consider, and I guess this is a question to all of us, is with this commission, how will we engage these commissioners to have a dialogue with the city council so that we can learn from their experience? So that's my question to all of us. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, other comments from council? Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I'd also like to add the Historic Ag Commission. Put somebody on that. I don't see that here. So I think.
Okay.
And then finally, I have to concur with Ted. I personally think 14 to 18. I think I would go with that. Keep them in high school. Although maybe a couple years at Norco College. No, 14 I think is for me the earliest.
Okay. Councilmember Allman?
Yes, so a couple things. Just to to speak to the expanded age. So this idea, came from a conference of other cities who were doing it, and some of them did the expanded age to include these early college students. And one of the reasons they did too was to increase recruitment, right? To have a lot of people or more youth who were able and willing to be involved, but certainly not every city does that. I teach middle school. I have some 13-year-old 7th graders who I think could hold their own on a commission. So, technically they're teenage years. I'm not too concerned, though, about the age on whatever the consensus for the commission lands, but that kind of expanded age just comes from some of the ideas of including these younger adults and getting those students involved in the city. When I read this, too, this was really our pilot, and so I absolutely agree, like adding Stuck and the Historic Ag Commission, but I think the idea was we wanted to just try it out to see if we like it. We could always just try it all across the board because we can always make adjustments as we go. One of the points that I wanted to make too that I heard about at the conference was that they on each commission gave the youth a mentor. They made sure that there was someone on that commission who was willing to help that youth and mentor that youth to get their feet wet, and provide them, answer questions, and kind of be a support to them as they were added onto that. So I think that would be a good idea if we're putting youth on these commissions. And then the last thing that I just wanted to bring, last thing was, this was a 2-year pilot we had in here. And I don't know that it would take 2 years to see if it's working. I think after a year we can evaluate and see how we're doing. And I think the same with the term. If we did 1 year or 2 year, we could always evaluate and see how that's working. I do think that that's a really interesting idea with 1 year because, with our youth, sometimes their schedules are changing or different things. And then we could also evaluate if it's not working or it's not enough time for them to get their feet wet. We could always change it. I did just want to bring up and ask to see what my colleagues thought, though, about their votes not counting. On the Planning Commission, I completely understand that. But we're asking them and we're expecting them to do all of the same work as all of the adults on the commission. They're showing up for the same hours, they're doing the same prep work, they're asked to weigh in on the same issues, they're part of the same community. And I don't think that we would ever say to a senior on the commission that they couldn't vote because of their age. So for me, I just want to have a kind of a good reason, if anyone has one, other than just their age. The other thing I think, okay, well, if there's 6, right, it could be a split vote. This is not a hill that I'm going to die on, but I just, and able to justify to our youth that they're going to do all of this work. Because on the school board, they don't get a vote, but they weren't elected. So they're all getting appointed in the same manner that everyone who's on that commission is. So just looking at it through that lens in terms of how do we kind of justify or explain to our youth that piece. So thank you.
Well, my first thought on the voting part was, I think the big concern would be if it's a tie vote. And because always a tie vote is denial, correct? So you want to prevent that. So then do we look at either reducing a, commissioner or adding a commissioner? So I'd like to test it first. I think would be a good way to do it and see if that's an objection. Well, let's go back to then my last question was engaging in a dialogue. How are we going to learn from these commissioners? Maybe that's going to be one thing that we talk about is how did you feel being not a non-voting member? And where would it made a difference? Something maybe to that effect.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And because this is a pilot, that's what we're really doing right now, hopefully, is piloting, right, so that we can come up with the best practice for our city and for our youth. Getting that feedback would be great. I also wondered, how many times do we really have a tie vote on our commissions? If it's not very frequent, then, sometimes things aren't issues that we think will be, and sometimes they are. So thank you for your comments. That's helpful.
Now, I'll add kind of my 2 cents on that. I think there's a couple of different things. Then the first thing that just kind of pops into my mind is how impressionable and easily influenced young people can be. And, you know, I would hope this wouldn't happen, but I wouldn't want any young person to be put under a lot of undue pressure for if there was a controversial vote for some reason, because I know just as council members, the phone calls and the emails that we can get when there's critical votes coming up, and I certainly wouldn't want a young person to have that experience and the pressure, right, of having to make a decision like that. The other part of that is they are going to be compensated the same as our commissioners are, which I was happy to see that, and I think for our young people that's going to be substantial. And then the other part of this is what I see our young people doing is resume building, right? And the potential for a whole nother aspect of letters of recommendation from commissioners, from city staff, from council members. Those are going to carry a little bit more weight than getting, you know, the typical recommendation from your English teacher or whoever, because it's going to show a depth of knowledge and experience that a lot of other students don't have. So I think there's some kind of auxiliary benefits that these students are going to have from just the access to staff and other commissioners and folks that maybe will kind of compensate a little bit for not being a voting member. So, other comments from council?
I just have one on it. So let me understand now. You're going to say we're going to allow them to vote or not? Just
No, I think the consensus is not. I just wanted to hear kind of other people's
Okay, okay.
reasons for why, which I didn't think of that, right? The pressure. So that's a really helpful piece. You know, I was looking at it through my lens, and so I just wanted to have a discussion to kind of hear the reasons for and against as we come to the decision of the which way it's going to be. So I definitely agree in hearing what my colleagues have said, and that's what I was asking for.
The only reason, because other than planning, all the other ones are advisory groups anyway. So we end up having the final say up here, yeah, except on planning where that's actually a binding vote. So that's the only thing is that the rest are advisory. I mean, I was on the streets and trails utility when there was 7 or 9 people. Well, there was a whole bunch of us in there. We took the whole dias and it was just nuts. So, but I understand but there was an advisory position. And so that was one thing, but that's what we just have to keep that in focus. Thank you.
I think for me, in terms of the voting, not to be philosophical, but to be philosophical, the vote in America is becoming very cheap. It's something that we grab, we practically steal them out of neighborhoods, and it's terrible. And Park and Rec Commission, they oversee multiple youth programs. The Agricultural and Historic Commission is extremely important to us protecting our lifestyle. Planning Commission obviously is very important. Streets and trails in particular, streets are very important. And I think that by watching other people vote and understanding the value of that vote, I think is very important. You know, again, not to get philosophical, but before America, most people, 95% of the world population, lived below the poverty level. And it was because of that vote that we created the largest middle class in the history of the world. So I just think that to watch other people vote for a while, if you're a youngster, is not a bad idea. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to try and help maybe summarize the discussion. I haven't heard a landing place for age to give to staff, so we'll need to clarify that. We'll need to clarify the term, whether it's going to be 1 year renewable or leave as a staff recommendation of a 2-year non-renewable. And I think those were the only 2 things maybe that we needed.
Mayor, if I may, the other outstanding issue is the method of appointment.
Okay.
Whether you want to have the mayor select, do an ad hoc committee, or have a panel of staff, whatever that your preferences are on that.
I like that they had to stand before council. I think that was nice, but if it's more expedient, I guess staff could do it. Depends on, we've always had enough people. We never had to turn anybody away, so.
It's just more time, you know, those commission appointments are just another time on your agenda. So it's completely up to you. You could do them just as you do everyone else. That's an option.
And I'm swayed by Catherine's argument. I like 14, but then I kind of get that somebody older, college, I think maybe 20, but 21 I don't really care, but I think maybe go older, I like that. But I think starting at 14 for me is a good starting point. Have the 13-year-old lie about their age.
Okay. Catherine?
That's a great start to their civil service career. Just lie on your application. That's fine. Yeah. With the appointments, the only thing is that time piece. I don't know if we wanted to do like a subcommittee to go through the applications and it would come to council for the final appointment, or if we want to do the same, bring them forward. I mean, either way.
I have an idea to jump in. What if the mayor and the city manager and maybe a department head, maybe you guys did the interviewing? In other words, you interviewed so they had the opportunity to interview, or the city manager if she has time to do it that way. I just think there needs to be some application where they talk about themselves somehow,
Well, they have to apply, right? They're going to have to fill out an application. I mean, all of our commissions, they fill out their application, and then they either come and give public comment or not, and then we vote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could do an interview, like a subcommittee interview, or...
Councilmember Hoffman?
You know, when we did this before, we got the application. One, it's going to take them the time to do the application if they really want to do it. It's not just putting your name in a hat and somebody picking you. Two, we've done it all up here. You want to be on one of these commissioners, you make sure you're here for that vote. It shows your interest in getting the position. And that's one of the things, and if you recall, that time we were trying to find 9 of those. We had 10 applicants. 1 didn't show. It made our job really easy. We didn't vote for that person. So it's one of the things we have to look at too. They're going to have to come in here. It's part of the process. Part of the process of going through this application and their livelihood, whether you're the 13 or 14-year-old or versus you're the 20, 21-year-old. You got to stand there and tell us, sell yourself. And that's part of the whole job application system. It's part of let's look at it as an employment. You got to sell yourself to these 5 people sitting up here. We go from there. That's how it works. So I'm all for doing it, sitting up here. A couple of good things is other residents will come up here. Their family or friends will show up here. Let's see how much support they're going to get. Other people are going to say, hey, you know, that was a lot of work to go through that. So maybe they won't. Those that aren't interested. Those that really want it are going to want to come up here and be part of the process. So I'm all for doing it that way. I don't need city manager or a bunch of people whittle it down. Let's throw the applications out there. And as far as the ages, Catherine, you're right. There are some smart 13-year-olds. I know I have one. It's a grandson. But
that would be middle school.
Let's make that easier for if their term of office, and we never talked about the dates. Will this go through from a June to a July through June date, or you're shaking your head?
It'll go through a regular recruitment process, which is annually begins July 1st. So recruitment is completed before June 30th.
Okay,
that's
so
when terms end. So
their
it's
term
July
would
1st
end
to
a
June
1-year term if we want 1-year term. So if say they turn 14 on that year of their term, they're a 13-year-old that comes up in their term. I'm good with that, but I think we ought to cut it off when they're 20. We do that with the Explorer programs. You're 20, you're done. I mean, that's your last year. So I don't want a bunch of 21-year-olds in there.
That sounds good.
Okay, so we whittled a couple of them down.
Okay, so I think we are clear on recruitment and application process and appointment process. We'll follow the status quo. And then ages is going to be 13 to 20. Yes? Okay. And 1 year non-renew or 1 year renewable term. Okay. What else, Dane?
These are the few things I had. Adding streets and trails and historic ag commission.
Mm-hmm.
They will not be a voting member, resident or student in Norco, age 13, turning 14 in their term to 20, taking out watch meeting as part of their application process, 1 year term renewable, The appointment process will fill out an application, come to City Council to speak on their own behalf, and Council will appoint. That's where I'm at.
The idea that they only go to the school, you know, part of the reason that our commissioners are residents is because their votes or their input affects residents. I don't know if that matters, if school's enough of a connection, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe we should we limit it to residents?
Well, they don't get a vote, right? They're just giving a student youth perspective, an advisory perspective. And I would say a lot of those students who, if they're going to Norco schools, they're also doing things in Norco. They're on Norco sports teams. They're spending a lot of time in the city. So they have a vested interest in kind of that perspective. And since their vote, you know, it's just an advisory vote.
So do any Corona people have chicken? Well, Beth Grove's had a chicken, so I guess.
Well, and I'm going to concur with Catherine. You know, Norco has declining enrollment just as a community, and our boundaries for our Norco schools keep expanding and expanding. And I think the culture at our Norco schools is enough that even if the students are not residents of Norco, there's a buy-in there for sure within the school and the community. So I certainly think it's an asset to include those students and give them the option. So do we need...
Are you good with the motion that you discussed?
The one that, yes.
I
with
repeated
our,
that you
yes,
discussed.
ma'am.
I second her motion,
That will be my motion.
whatever it was.
It's just better if you just say second instead
Second.
of that last part, Kevin.
Read the minutes later.
And Mayor, if I may, I think next council meeting on your consent calendar, we'll just memorialize this by resolution. It doesn't need to be an ordinance. These are just, you know,
Okay.
they're not voting. We'll put it in a resolution that you can adopt on consent next time.
Awesome. That sounds delightful.
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Council.
All right, thank you very much. And so we will go on to item number 7, our public hearing. We're continuing a public hearing on the ordinance. And so with that, our planning director will make the presentation.
Yes, good evening, mayor, members of the city council. This agenda item 7A is ordinance 1093, and it's for a zone code amendment 2022-05. And this is a proposal to amend our Norco municipal code on accessory dwelling units to be consistent with state law. As the council will recall, this agenda item was continued from the last meeting. The council reviewed this proposal to amend the municipal code and had some concerns and directed staff to strengthen the verbiage in the proposal to protect the animal keeping area as written in the ordinance. And with that, I'd like to point out that staff has looked at section 18.3046, section E19, which addresses animal keeping, and has strengthened that area to protect our animal keeping areas from a health and safety perspective. So in preservation of our, either it's a PACA or the required open animal keeping area. And in addition to that, we've added verbiage in that requirement that access to the PACA or the open animal keeping area also be preserved from a health and safety perspective in case of an emergency. That's the only change that was done to the ordinance that is different from the last review by the city council. Staff's recommendation is for approval. And one thing that I'd like to point out is that staff has reviewed several accessory dwelling units. And in my history of reviewing these accessory dwelling units, even without this verbiage, we've been very successful in making sure that the animal keeping areas are preserved on properties that desire to put an accessory dwelling unit. With that, I will conclude my presentation. Our recommendation is for approval. I'd like to also point out that following the adoption of this ordinance, we will be submitting this ordinance to HCD
for their review and consideration. And with that, I will conclude and answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, does council have any questions of staff?
Questions? I'll wait.
If there are comments, are they comments or questions?
We'll leave it as discussion.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions? All right, so then at this time, I'd like to open, thank you, Alma, for your presentation. I'd like to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Do we have any public comments?
I have no public speaker cards for this item.
All right, thank you. Closing public comments. So we'll come back to council for discussion. Councilmember Newton, you have some discussion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alma, hi. I always appreciate your hard work. So, I'd like to make, if we can, last week I listened to a speaker that inspired me on some of the aspects of our town. If you look at page 499 of 514, it's where we changed to item 19, animal area required. Okay, so what we have in red is to preserve the health, welfare, and safety of the large animal and small animals. I think it would be a benefit if we can include an agricultural lifestyle in this. It's one of our primary goals, is to encourage animal keeping and an agricultural lifestyle. So could we modify this verbiage to add that? So not only animal keeping and equestrian lifestyle, but agricultural lifestyle. And that, I think, happens in a couple of places. But that was the one paragraph that jumped out to me the most. And it kind of references back to the land use element or our general
Right.
plan.
That is correct. I don't see a problem with that. I think that
Okay.
that can be accommodated, absolutely.
Because I think that's, well, it's a, like I said, it's a primary goal, it's an important component.
Right. And it is consistent with our land use element. That is correct.
Correct.
Mhm.
And then just a little bit of clarification on, I thought I had it highlighted. This is the clear area to the animal keeping area or to the PACA,
Both.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Where we make references to the PACA, that was also because if you remember, I think this is back on Norco Ridge Ranch. The PACAs were not only animal keeping, that they were also could be used for agricultural use.
That's correct.
Correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Which, yeah, I remember you could grow apple trees, you could have a vineyard, you could have orchards, whatever. So, pardon? Don't go there with me on that. So I just want to kind of strengthen that because I think that would help with this, okay? Where we talk about it, PACAs
Mm-hmm.
that way, to also bring in the agricultural influence with it. So then we talk about having clear access. And I wanted to strengthen that a little bit. And I went back. And it was just more some clarification on, I could find my note, Alma. It was, you just called out for a 12-foot clear,
That's correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Could we change that? And this is what we did in Norco Ridge Ranch, was 15 foot from the building envelope. Because you remember years ago, we always had conversation on roof overhangs.
That's correct. Yes.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you have this 12-foot dimension, do you take that from face a building, or do you take it from the roof overhang?
The way it was written in the Norco Ridge Grants, you're correct. It's from the roof eave. It's clear access. With the
It's-
vertical. Yeah.
It's actually from the building envelope.
Okay.
15 foot from building envelope.
So the reason why I put in 12 feet, because this applies to all properties that allow animal keeping, and in the A1 zone, the minimum site access in the A1 zone is 12 feet.
Okay.
So that's where I came with the 12 feet, or depending on the underlying zone. In the Norco Ridge Rent specific plan, it did require the 15 feet
Right.
to the building envelope, or I believe it was
Yep.
the roof eave. But
Mhm.
I understand what you're saying is that I
Okay.
should strengthen that, the 15-footer, to say that it's from the building envelope.
Because it's basically the same dimension, but it defines it better. And I'd also like to add clear and
Unobstructed.
unobstructive, correct. We had a couple of cases years ago on planning where we had one applicant try to convince us that he could back a horse trailer around a swimming pool. And the other was that the clear access was where all the swimming pool equipment was. So I'd like to add that verbiage of clear and unobstructive. Just take away some of that ammunition.
So I have a question on that. Houses have been built with the 12-foot access and a 2-foot eave that is their access to their primary animal keeping area. They already exist without 15-foot clearance.
So
I know a specific
I'm
house.
trying to remember how we came up with that was, well, we had 15 foot from building envelope, but it was the impact of the overhang. It was kind of like, well, where are you defining this measurement from? And then you had the roof overhang. So if you had 12 foot, let's say from building envelope, and a 2 foot or a 3 foot roof overhang, and you have Mr. Hoffman trying to back in the NART trailer, and he takes out the overhang on your roof. So that was the reason we're more defined
Right, so but I'm
on
right.
that dimension. Is that your?
No, so a house does not have that standard right now. How does that then apply? Because the house can't be moved. Their only access is 12 foot, including a 2-foot overhang of their eave.
That is correct. And that's the reason why I put the verbiage standards to say 12 feet.
Okay.
And it's usually from the wall. Because the majority of the properties here in the A1 zone that are already developed, the minimum access at the time was the 12 feet. So, but given the history of, some potential issues with the access, when we adopted the rules and regulations for the Norco Ridge Rand specific plan, that's where we adopted the 15-foot access. And if I remember correctly, and it was 15-foot access vertical clearance,
Mm-hmm.
which excluded the overhang. So that's specifically how it was worded. And again,
Right.
the 12-foot is because a lot of the houses in the A1 zone don't have 15-foot clearance. So
Just to get into the backyard.
that is correct.
Right. Yeah. That was my question. Is a number of houses don't even have that 15 to start. They only have 12 with an overhang. So how would this affect those houses that
Well,
don't
then-
have the
Then you
access
go back
already?
to the A120s that have, where way back when, 5 foot on one side, 15 on the other.
Yes, and
Right.
and that's
So-
correct. And then the minimum requirement before, but I believe it was 2,000, 5 feet on one side, 12 feet on the other was the minimum.
Yeah.
They had to equal 20 feet. So if one side was down to 5, yes, the other side equaled 15. But if it was 8 feet, the other side was 12. And there are a lot of properties like that.
I'm just, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. It's just, I want to make sure it takes away the questions, and that so staff has something that says it's X amount, and it's clear, it's unobstructive, right?
So
I just want to know how that would affect a house that doesn't meet that requirement already, right? You know what I mean? What would planning
But
say
I
in
guess
that
that's
case?
the wisdom of the planning commission, because I always go back to the no lot is the same.
Right.
Okay.
And that's,
Everyone's different.
yes.
And if I could make a recommendation, my recommendation is that we leave it 12 foot wide, for
Okay.
those properties that have the 12-foot minimum 12-foot axis, and as required by the underlying zone, which, you know, up in the Norco Ridge Ranch, it's 15. But the keyword that I recommend that is appropriate to add is clear and unobstructed. And I think that would cover everything.
And I'd be happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Anything else?
That's all I have right now, and appreciate all your hard work, Alma. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Alma, if I can, Greg Pruna, there, by the way, the house, perfect example is off of Alhambra. I was going to buy it until I figured I couldn't back my trailer in because of the overhang. One of the things, and since Greg brought this up on the definition, and I don't have it in front of me, PACAs have it defined in the code. They have a defined a description, correct? It says primary animal keeping.
Yes.
Okay, since if we're going to upgrade this, and Greg's right, do we want to upgrade the definition of PACA or the AKA, the animal keeping area, and to include agriculture?
My recommendation, and this is my recommendation, is that we go back to those zones that that have the actual PACA or the animal keeping area and strengthen it there. And as opposed to the ADU ordinance, because what we don't want is for HCD to say, you know, think it's an obstruction or a restriction on the property, where in actuality we can strengthen it in the A1 zone in the Norco Ridge Ranch, and it would.
Okay, that's kind of where I'm. Okay, is that we want to upgrade that whole definition, not just for this, but citywide. Is that what we're going to include agriculture, so it's strengthened in there, right? Is that what that's what I'm thinking.
I think it's a great idea to continue to do everything we can in our development code to promote agricultural uses. So in the general plan update, when we're comprehensively revisiting our development code, would be like the perfect time, and then we'll also be able to satisfy our CEQA requirements and dot all the I's to look like with a fine-tooth comb at all of our development standards and really make sure that rural living is incorporated throughout. So we have a working list already of things to look at. So I'd put this on the list in terms of what we can do in that process.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're including that agricultural
that's allowed,
portion of it.
right.
If it should be allowed in there, it should.
Okay.
So we don't look and we're not really going to tackle this one specifically on it and not fix the other one.
I think
So
that's great.
We fix all of it.
Especially because we've added beekeeping, we've added chickens. We need to make sure that's consistent through the code of what we're allowing in that PACA, right?
Right, that's all I have. Thank you.
So wait a minute. What I had asked was on page 499, item 19, where you changed in red to preserve the animal keeping, that you also add the agricultural lifestyle. Are you saying, Laura, you don't want that added in there now?
No, Councilmember, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that Councilmember Hoffman was recommending like a more comprehensive definition for PACA be revisited. That's not actually in this ordinance. So the PACA definition is not in this ordinance, it's elsewhere in the development code. So my suggestion is on that, let's put a pin in it and revisit that. But your edit on that section 19 and page 499
And
to add
wherever
small
else.
animals, comma, and agricultural lifestyle location, I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Right, okay.
Okay.
But my intent right now is to strengthen this item where it occurs
Yes.
in your changes. Thank you. Sorry.
Any other discussion from council? Thank you for the work on this. It's positive changes for sure. So I definitely appreciate
Thank you.
the work that you guys have done. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, can I read the title?
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
This is ordinance number 1093, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco, amending section 183046, accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units of the Norco Municipal Code, NMC, to address development standards for compliance with state law, Zone Code Amendment 2022-05.
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 8, City Council and Staff Communications. City staff. Anybody? All right. City Attorney. Okay. City Manager. All right. City Council.
I do, Robin, and this goes back to my earlier comment about the sustainable thing. And what I'd like us to do is maybe, if it's with your permission, is to write something up as a city, because this has to be done. This is to a Riverside Transit Agency regarding the sustainables for this project. And it's got a deadline, I believe, in mid. Let's see. Their collection of data and everything. So they're looking at February of this year, and then do their final plan in March. So if I can work together with, there's not enough time for us to have a meeting, but we'll work with the city manager to formulate a letter to them, reference the recommendations on this. And the full project has to do with trying to get working so that the routes, we have more bus routes. As we all know, most of our students, we don't have the busing for students, so they have to rely on public transportation if they can. And currently, the closest we get to any of our schools is Auburndale, and that's it. And Norco doesn't have it. Norco High School doesn't have it. Norco Middle School doesn't have it. None of them have it. And so what I'd like us to do, I'm not asking to have RTA put a bus route, but perhaps to continue the route so that our kids from Eastville at least can come down. Some of them come here, and they only have one route. And this is try to get them to reopen route number 4. That's the one along River Road. They're not even thinking about it now. They just ignored it and just have closed it all off. So what I'd like to do is maybe work with the city manager. We can put this together if it's permission is okay.
Is council agreeable to Ted working with the city manager to get that information? All right. Good.
And you're more than welcome to go. It's on the RTA website to look for it, or I'll send you copies of it so that you have it. It's just that our city email takes little things. It doesn't take big stuff. So, all right. Thank you.
Any other council members?
Thank you.
Oh. You'll be next.
I brought this up to the city manager the other day, that if city council could write a letter with the mayor signing it, to our assembly member regarding Assembly Bill 233. And this is on the proposed manure bill. And I'd also like it, I think it would be beneficial to also include Assembly Member Cervantes, since she's familiar with Norco also. And so I did have a talk with our Assembly member this afternoon about this, and told him I was gonna bring this up to council, and they were doing some investigation on the bill. I asked them if they could find more important things to work on than pick on horses. And so the conversation went downhill from that. So my request is that city manager and staff put together a letter signed by council regarding that bill.
Council agreeable? Yes. All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alleman.
Yes, there were a number of things on consent and on the agenda today, so I just wanted to thank staff and our city manager for their work in, revamping code enforcement, improving our technology with Office 365. Speaking of only being able to send small attachments, I had that issue this week as well. The constant work that's done on our water lines and our streets, our exceptional audit and finance, and then lastly, I'm really excited about our youth commissioners. We're one of the only cities in the area that is doing this, and I think it's really meaningful work, and it's a really exciting step forward to get our youth back in and involved in our community. So looking forward to seeing what comes from our pilot and how we can continue to better serve our community.
Councilman Bash.
Lori, would it be possible to be briefed on the new
bill actually to be put on the ballot, the new tax fee. I can't think of the number, but that's very, very, I think that people need to be aware of that may be coming.
Oh, my mic. There we go. Yes, we can schedule that at a future council meeting and do an update for the council and the community on that. So it's definitely a large concern coming up on the 2024 ballot, statewide ballot. So.
And then February 10th at 11 o'clock, they'll be dedicating the Norco post office to Kareem Nakui. And then Memorial Day, we have Kelly Suarto has agreed to be our guest speaker, so I'm very excited about that. And there was one other thing, but I can't remember what it is at the time. Oh, and then we are going to be putting a new person on the wall. The commission voted 2 weeks ago to put Agapito Beza on the wall, who is a Korean Vietnam veteran who suffered Agent Orange. He was a casualty. So we will be putting somebody on the wall on Memorial Day. And that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. So at this time, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:46.